Yeah.
Hello? How are you today? Rabotai. Let's begin. We are on page 10b1. And let's just back up for 1 second and we'll continue from that last piece that we did. The last piece that we did together was on 10b1, Yud Amud Bet, Rav Yehuda. That was a special for you guys, Jonah and Stanley. Rav Yehuda.
Rabbi Yehuda.
Not Rabbi Yehuda.
Different guy. It's an apostle.
Rav Yehuda. Shari le Mishkal Tufre le Chamra derechaya. So we just got through this idea that Reb Chama said that you could gouge any kind of millstone. You could scratch the millstone, whatever, new or old, mutar. That's what he holds, okay? And then he brings over in the name of Rabbi Meir that you're able to trim the hooves of a donkey or a horse that's traveling a distance because you're gonna need that, okay? Mutar when you have a hamor, when you have a donkey that's only walking around in circles, only producing a small amount of flour, don't do it. No reason. What are you going to do it for? No, there's no point. It's anyway a small amount, so therefore it's asur because it's not going to get to a place where it's necessary for the donkey. Okay. Rav Yehuda Shari, however, the Gemara continues and says, Rav Yehuda Shari the Mishka Tufrei Lachamra Derechaya. Rav Yehuda actually held that you were allowed to do it, even the hooves of the donkey that's moving the millstone, even that which was a small amount, even that he allowed. And not only that, Rav Yehuda is pumped. He's going for gold. Ulu Komi Rechaya, no problem, set up the millstones. Ulu Mivne Rechaya, and build the millstones. Okay, not just setting it up from something which already exists, but if you need to build them as well. Ulu Mivne Amat Rechaya, and you need to build the frame around the mill. Ulu Mivne Uraya, and even to build the barn for the animals that are going to turn the mill. Everything you're going to do. We talked also as well about why the uraya can't be a space to be able to hold the grain. Okay, maybe the reason why is because the Gemara rolls off of it with the next piece. But again, did it have to be that way? I'm not sure. The Gemara continues and says, Rav shara lesaruke susaya. Rav allowed a person to be misarek, to brush the hair of the horses. Ulemivne akarpita, and also to be able to build a place for the horses to stay, as we mentioned already earlier. You need the horses. The horses have to be able to stay somewhere. Ulemivne itztava, and also to build a bench on Chol HaMoed for people to sit on. So in each of these cases, we're finding an interesting halacha. Why would you be allowed to comb? First of all, let's ask the other question. Why would you not be allowed to brush the hair of your horse? I never knew that was a thing until my sister came home with something called My Little Pony. And all day long, brushing the horse. What are you brushing the horse for? So the horse looks beautiful. When a person is riding a horse, today, we think of a horse, all we think of is the mode of transportation. But for them, it was also an accessory, right? So a horse that looks all unkempt when you're riding around the Chol Moed is the same way you would not have your clothes look horrible on Chol Moed. You also wouldn't drive around on a horse that's unkempt, okay?
Wash your car.
Yes, yeah, wash your car.
Keep it nice.
Yeah, brush the item, okay. And also to build the manga for the animals, as we said. The animal, if it's not comfortable, it could be damaging for the animal, and that's considered, as we said, davar aved. It's protecting from a loss. It's the ban also to build a bench. If people need a bench to sit on, so the halacha is you can build a bench on Chol HaMoed, but obviously not a very complicated bench. I don't know what a complicated and uncomplicated bench is, but a simple bench you're able to build on the holiday. Gemara says, okay, now that we've seen all these people telling us all these things that we're allowed to do on Chol HaMoed, Rava hits off. He sees very popular. Come up with the kulot on Chol HaMoed. He says, okay, give me my turn. He allowed them to do bloodletting on an animal on Chol HaMoed. Now at the time, what they would do with bloodletting was something that was done for the health of both humans and animals, okay? Now, what he allowed them to do, since the animal was needed it for its health, so you're able to do the bloodletting on Chol HaMoed for the animal as well. Again, because it's a medical treatment. The other opinion says that it was done in order to be able to minimize pain from the animal, but also as well, that was also something that was allowed for the sake of pain. They were allowed to do it on Chol HaMoed. Amar Abaye, Tanya D'Msayelach, let me bring a braita that proves this idea. Mekizin dam d'mehema, you're able to let blood for an animal. Ve'en moni'in refuah l'behema b'chol HaMoed, and you don't you don't hold yourself back from doing any sort of medical treatment for an animal on Chol HaMoed. Okay? Now, again, why would you think that you should be withholding medical treatment if it needs medical treatment? The answer is that we're obviously talking about a medical treatment which requires you to break to do one of the elements of a melacha, of work, okay? And the question was, are you allowed to do the work for the animal? And the answer is, yes, you're able to do the work for the animal on Chol HaMoed. So as an example, let's say you need to crush some form of medication for the animal. Let's say, which is tochen. Let's say you needed to, to hold bandages to the blood, which could be dyeing. You're dyeing the bandages themselves. The towels are now going to be dyed red from the blood of the animal. So you might have things that could be a melacha. Still, the halacha is on Chol HaMoed. For the sake of refuah for the animal, you're allowed to do so. Rava continues. Rava says, "Rava shara lekaskusi kirme." He allowed us to lechaskes, which means to iron or to press. Kirmi. Kirmi comes from the word of kirum betza. Kirum betza means the thin element. I don't know if you ever opened an egg. On top of the egg, under the peel, that little wrapping that they gave you from the factory. Yani, okay? That's called krum betza. Ironically, it comes up a lot. Krum betza comes up with regards to one of the colors of tzarat, because we're defining different shades of white. There's a shade of white, which is that little skin inside, that membrane inside, okay? Now, what's interesting is that we have a famous paint color today. It's called eggshell. Mm-hmm. So eggshell is their item. We're going even deeper than the eggshell. We're going to talk about the little wrapping inside the eggshell. So, if you have these clothing that was so thin and so delicate that it was called kirmi, right? Even that you were allowed to iron on Chol HaMoed. My ta'ama, says the Gemara. What's the reason? Because even though the material is very thin, still ironing it is not something that you need to be a skilled laborer in order to do. So ironing the item, even you're just a little bit more careful if it's thinner, but it doesn't require ma'aseh uman, which is the work of a craftsman. Mm-hmm. Now, let's be clear. We've flirted a little bit with this idea already a couple of times. This idea that if you're doing something which is complicated, you're not allowed to do it. Okay? Now the question is, why? We, up until this now, understand one rule so far, which is tircha yetera. A second rule, which is loss. We didn't talk about how the work has to be. Is it the work of an expert, not of an expert? We talked already about a little bit, almost without even noticing why, that if it's the work of a craftsman, you have to sew like a tooth, up and down, higher up, or what's it called, or spaced out, or up and down, right? So we talked about not doing it in a way of a uman, but we did not yet discuss what the problem is with the uman. But let's just imagine that we know the reason already why uman is a problem, okay? You can't do the work of an uman on Chol HaMoed unless there's a specific reason which allows it. Says Rava, to iron these very thin clothing was allowed because it was ma'aseh hedyot, it was not considered to be the work of a professional. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak bar Ami. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Ami said, Amar Rabbi Chizda, Rabbi Chizda, kituri biri asur. However, if a person has a sleeve on a piece of clothing, and you're ironing it, not straight ironing, you're ironing pleats into it. Ironing pleats is very, very, very difficult. Because when you're ironing the piece, one piece has to be up, the other piece has to be down. As you're ironing, the sleeve is moving. You're going to mess up the whole design of the pleated look. So to iron pleats is already difficult. By the way, just as an aside point, I remember once walking into a dry cleaner, and they had different prices for a regular skirt and for a pleated skirt, illustrating exactly this concept of the Gemara, that there's a difference between ironing something and ironing something which is pleated. It's more expensive, more complicated to do so. Kiture biri asur. So that's asur. Maitama, how come? Maseh umanu. That type of ironing is actually already more complicated, and that we'll see already why when we get to it. Even though you need the item, still we're going to say it's asur for ma'aseh uman. Says the Gemara, Amar Rava. Rava is on a roll. He's the most popular rabbi. Joey gives money to his yeshiva. Yep. Amar Rava. Rava says, Man de matkil ara. Let's say a person is getting rid of all the various pieces in the land in order to make the land straight, or in order to to do something for it later. Let's take a look for 1 second. Rashi says, Matkil tikla, right in the middle of the page. He says, Shechofer mishama adama letzorach hagoren lachavot shama chitin letzorach hamoed. Haynu adat debei dari v'shari. Okay? So the Gemara says, if you're removing the obstacles from the land on Chol HaMoed, the halacha is like this. Adate debedari, if the reason why you're digging in the ground, you're removing all these obstacles, is in order to make a space, debedari, to create a space where you could do threshing, that is mutar. Why? Because threshing of the wheat is something that you need to do in order to eat the food on Chol HaMoed, so it's something that you need for Cholosh HaMoed. Therefore, that will be mutar. Adate da'ara, but if you're doing it in order to be able to ultimately plow the land better, or do something for the land that you're not doing on Chol HaMoed, asir, obviously you're not allowed to start removing clumps and clods and pieces of and stones from the earth. Echidami, says the Gemara. 1 second, I don't understand. Where and how is this something that you'd be able to make it obvious that that's what's going on? Mulia bemulia, says the Gemara. If a person digs a mound, okay, and now he takes the mound that he put and he puts it on top of the other one, vinatza benatza, if he digs a hole and he puts the dirt into the hole, then the person his point is to be able to make a threshing floor because he's clearing space in order to do so. Shakil mulaya, but if he took a mound, vishada binza, and he threw the dirt into a hole, then we see that the reason why he's doing it is in order to be able to improve the land. So again, if the guy is just making space, opening it up, right? So then the guy, what would he be doing? He's preparing for a threshing floor. When he's scoring the earth in a way where it's going to make it better to be able to do the ara, then it's more obvious. It says the Gemara. Says Rashi. Let's look at Rashi. Rashi says, Adate da'ara. What does it mean if he's doing it for the earth? Look at the middle Rashi, right in the middle of the page. Shechofer sadeh, he's digging up his field. Letzorech zirah, for the purpose of planting. Asur mishum dedami kechoresh b'yom tov. It looks like he is plowing on Yom Tov, even though he's really only removing certain pieces, but he's not doing a full plowing, right? You can't plant after he's doing this, but digging around in the field looks like he is doing it. He's choresh on Yom Tov. Mulia bemulia. So the Gemara says, what would make it look like he's doing? Because you're telling me you can't do it because it looks like choresh. That's the reason why I can't do it. To be clear, if anyone Persian is listening, I'm not saying it looks like choresh. I'm saying it looks like choresh. Okay? So, if a person is digging in the earth, what would make it look like he's preparing for plowing, and what would make it look like not? Gemara says, Mulia bemulia. Shenotela karka mekom gavoa. If he takes the earth from a higher place, if he's taking an elevated space, he's taking a mound which is already up, and he's putting more on that mound, it's clear that he's trying to create a dug down space in order to thresh on it. But or natza benatza, or if he digs into a place, he digs in a place which is low, and he puts it in a low place, that's for the sake of the land. The asur, that's how a person who's planting, that's what he does, sadeo. He doesn't care where the plow is going in his field. Because whether you're high, whether you're low, you're still going to need to plow the land to put seeds in it. Right? If it's up or down, you're still pulling the threshold, the plow through such a place. That looks like you're trying to plant. You're trying to plant. Aval shakal mulya, Rashi says. But if you take the earth from the high place, vishada binsa, and you're throwing it into the low place, that is for the sake of creating a threshing floor. When a person is digging in a way where it looks like he's being indiscriminate, high places, low places, wherever he's going, he needs to dig because he needs to plant. That looks like a plower. But when a person is taking from a high place and putting it into a low place, what does it look like you're trying to do? Smooth the earth. That is an ineffective technique for threshing, right? Excuse me, for plowing. So therefore, it would be clear that that person is not doing that, in which case it would be allowed. If you remembered, we came across this Gemara when we were talking about hoeing. The Gemara said, you can't hoe. Remember the beginning? And we asked them why, and I said, we're going to skip later. You said you wanted to know why. So we actually read this Gemara.
But why can't you just wait till after Chol Hamoed to do this?
Why can't you wait? No, because you need to thresh the food. You need to thresh the grain to make challah for Chol Hamoed. Oh. So when you're making a threshing floor, what are you doing? What was the threshing floor? They would make a flat space, and then they would put stuff on the floor, and they would have the animals come and step on the threshing floor, and that would crack things open. Remember? And then we talked about this. And then you took all of the seeds and the chaff and the stalk, throw it to the wind. That's dash, winnowing. The wind would blow away the chaff, the lighter things. What would fall back to the ground is the seeds. Now I would take the grain, the seeds, I would then move it to the millstone and put it in the millstone. But this was a necessary step in order to make bread. So if they wanted to make bread or cookies or whatever for the holiday, they needed to do this threshing floor. Okay, says the Gemara.
Presumably, though, they use the same threshing floor for an extended period of time.
Not necessarily. Like as an example, let's say the person has a barn full of wheat and grain. There's no place to be able to spread because it takes a lot of surface space, area, because you're literally putting all of the wheat on the ground in one layer, so that when the animals come and stamp all over the top of on the threshing floor, right, they're gonna be able to crack things up, right? So the guy his normal threshing space might be occupied now. Right?
You wouldn't prepare before Chol Hamoed for bread and all that before?
No, because they need it fresh. We're used to this idea of preservatives, of things staying fresh. Their bread was stale one day later.
The man every day came.
If we had the man, then we're good to go. Okay. Says the Gemara, okay? Amar Rava. Rava is rolling. Rava says, that's from this morning. Rava says, he has fresh goods. Hi man, the zachi. Let's say you have a person, okay, who's clearing away all the stuff from on the ground, all right? Now, it's interesting because the word zachi comes from the word zach. What does zach mean? Pure, clean, right? Shem and zayit, zach. So you have a man, zachi, he's purifying, he's cleaning. Okay? He's clearing away all this stuff. Adaita de tzivi, if the reason why he's doing this is because he needs the wood, tzivi means wood, like usually for burning. Okay, shari, mutar, he's allowed to do that. Why does he need the wood for burning? Because he needs to make his bread, he needs to cook his dishes, he needs to have whatever. So if he's doing it for that reason, no problem. Adaita da'ara, but if you're doing it in order to prepare the ground for plowing, what you're going to do after the holiday is over, asir. Yes, the Gemara, hechidami. 1 second. You're telling me I'm not allowed to do this because it looks like something which is forbidden. And you're telling me it's mutar in this case and it's forbidden in this case. How is the casual observer going to know what's allowed and what's not? How would he know what I'm doing? Answers the Gemara, very simple. Shakil Rav Revi Vishavik Zutri. If he takes the big ones and he leaves the small ones, Adaita Detzivi, then he's doing it for the sake of fuel, wood for fuel. Shakil Rav Revi, but if he takes big ones, Vizutri, and the small ones, Adaita Da'ara, then it seems like he is preparing the earth to be able to plow properly when he's finished. Now, what's interesting is as follows. Has anyone here ever made a fire? Mm-hmm. What do you need for a fire?
Spark.
Not just a spark. What do they call it?
Dry wood. Tinder.
Kindling, right? Or tinder, right? Either one of them, all right? Now, you're going to need the logs. Good luck trying to light a log on fire. Not going to happen, okay? So what do? You get big sticks and small sticks. What's the Gemara saying then? If I need it for tzivi, right, so then I should be gathering both. The Gemara over here says, no, you only need the fat ones for... The answer is as follows. I believe that this is what the Gemara means. It doesn't mean that if you took a little bit of the small ones, that would show. Right. But if the guy's collecting as much thick and small, then he's cleaning the space. Right. If he takes a little bit of the small with the thing, so he's taking mainly big ones, but he's taking a little bit of, because that's how you start a fire. You have a little bit of the thin wood, and the rest of the wood you have, because once this fire started, the thin wood does nothing for you. It burns in a second. So it's completely not helpful at all. So if the person is collecting, and as he's collecting equal like this and like this, then it's obvious he's cleaning. If he's doing it the other way around, then even if he's taking a little bit of the small, still it's okay because everyone knows he's collecting for tzivi and therefore it's not marit ayin. Rava says, Hayman, the patach maya. The guy opens up a gate of water. What are we referring to over here? Something akin to a dam, okay? Hayman de patach maya, a guy who opens a dam so that the water should come to the land. Some people call him Trump, okay? On Chol Moed, adaita de kavri. He does it for the sake of catching fish. That's why I said the Trump line. No one caught that? Okay, fine. Adaita de kavri. If he did it in order to be able to catch fish, what's that mean, to catch fish? The guy has a gate with the water running by a stream or by a river. You open the gate, what happens? The water runs onto your ground. The fish come on. Where do the fish go?
In the water.
They're on your ground now. They're sitting there on the rock, on the top of the ground. So what am I doing? Technically, I'm watering my ground. But my purpose is not to water the ground at all. My purpose is to fish in the laziest manner of fishing possible, okay? Shari, that's mutar. Because you're doing Chol Moed, exactly. Maybe one could say that fishing on Chol Moed is Tircha Yitera, if you could just open the gate. Adata da'ara, if you're doing in order to irrigate the land, obviously remember, we already have all sorts of understandings about irrigating the land, right? Does the land need it? If the land needs it, is it going to dry up? Not going to dry up? Right. So obviously we're talking about over here a land which does not need irrigation.
Question is, what happens if the land does need irrigation, but you also need to eat?
Not a problem. Remember, if I'm doing it for the fish, it's not a problem. What was our problem? That other people are going to think, so if I'm doing it for the fish, right, even if my land needs irrigation, right, that's going to be mutar. It's not the purpose.
Right. You're allowed to do it, yeah.
I don't have to eat fish tonight. I can have steak, but I
No,
can do for one.
we could always do that. I don't have to have hot food. I can have cold food. Still, you're allowed to collect wood, right? I don't have to wear this article of clothing or that article of clothing. Still, you're allowed to prepare the article of clothing or iron it or whatever the case might be. The point is not that I have to have no option. The point is this the melacha that I'm doing on Chol Moed, is it for something that's going to be used on the Moed? If the answer is yes, it doesn't matter that I had another way of doing it. It's not like breaking Shabbat that you're allowed to do for pikuach nefesh. We're not saying pikuach nefesh, I have to eat on Chol Moed. What am I going to do? I'm going to starve if I don't do melacha. That's not what we're saying. Melacha on Chol Moed was given to the rabbis to allow. When did they allow it? They allowed it for purpose of the Moed. So anything which is the purpose of the Moed is allowed. By the way, I'm going to take it further. Let's say I have land that needs irrigation. I could decide to have fish for dinner tonight.
That's what I meant when you said you could have steak.
You got that? No, I'm going one step further. I don't want fish.
You could use the fish.
No, exactly.
The fish is the cover.
I don't want fish.
Exactly my point.
But I'm going to have fish tonight in order. Allowed.
My question.
Allowed because you're eating it. Yeah, because you're eating it. You're eating the fish.
The only reason why you're eating it is so you could water.
Doesn't make a difference. I am eating fish on Chol Moed. I'm doing
it from the water.
No problem. And remember, we're also just trying to avoid marit ayin, that the other person thinks you did it for no reason, just for the irrigation.
And you got to invite the guy over for dinner that night?
No. So the Gemara keeps doing that. Well, how's the guy supposed to know? Right? You didn't invite him for dinner. Gemara says exactly the same item. Each time we're giving you something that you do the melacha in a way where it's clear that you're doing it for collecting wood. You dig holes in the way where it's clear that you're not doing it for plowing, you're doing it in order to have a threshing hole. Yeah, exactly. Okay? So we're going to do the same thing here too. Hechidami, how would it be clear to the casual observer that you did not invite over for fish tonight, that you're doing it? But Gemara says, Patach trebave, where the guy opens up 2 gates of water. One at the top, chad milai, chad mitatai, and one at the bottom. Adaita de kavre, it's clear that you're doing it only for the fish. Why? If you're trying to irrigate the water, you're not letting the water that you let in out. You want it to stay in the ground. Okay? So when the person does it that way, it's clear that he's doing it in order to catch the fish and not in order to run the water. But bottom line, by the way, I don't know if you know how water works. But when water runs across earth, right, not across linoleum, what happens? It gets into the water. But I'm doing it in a way where if I was only doing it for the sake of the earth, I wouldn't open the second gate. Clear? Okay. Says the Gemara, Patachad Bava, but if you opened up only one at the top, right? So it's coming in, but everything else is here on the ground, then it looks like the person's trying to only to water his ground. Gemara continues. Amar Rava. Rava says, well, one more. Hi man. This man, the Pashach Dikla. You have a person who's stripping the branches off of a palm tree. Adaita dechaveata. If he's doing it because he wants to give his animals the leaves in order to be able to eat, share mutar. Adaita de dikla. But if your purpose is in order to be able to make the tree grow better, right? Because that's usually the reason why you prune a tree, right? Because when you prune leaves off, what happens? The tree is able to send healthier, able to send more nutrients to the other parts of the tree. Asir, says the Gemara, if you're doing it for the tree, asir, it's asur. Why? What did we say already? Preventing loss mutar, improving the tree, asur. Gemara says, Echidami, how would anyone know if you're doing it for your animals or not? The fact that you're going to give it to your animals later is not something that he would know in the action time now. Gemara says, Shakil kuli mechad gisa adaita dechiviata. If the person took all of the branches of the palm tree they ripped off, took it from one side, that guy is doing it for his animals. Mehai gisa, if he took it from this side and this side, adaita dedikla. Why? Because when you prune, it's a terrible way to prune only from one side. So therefore, it's obvious to anyone that's passing that the reason why you did it was in order to give it to your animals, not pruning. Okay. The Gemara is like, it's just, right? Every technical question, the Gemara has a very simple answer. You know what I love? The answers of the Gemara illustrate a knowledge that was just very wide in animals, in fishing, in pruning, in whatever. Yeah, go ahead. So I had a question, then you?
Climbing a tree to prune it sounds strenuous.
A lot of work, yeah.
First of all, who told you have to climb?
I don't know. Palm trees are tall.
Not all palm trees. There's like a gazillion types of palm trees, which I discovered much later on in my life.
I'm assuming these aren't the ones that,
Something crazy like that.
There's date, there's coconut.
They're pretty high.
No, there's some low ones, right?
No, some grow very low. No. Yeah, every climate. Yeah, it's just a matter of which one you planted. Yeah. Okay. What else?
It sounds
What
like
if you do it both at the same time?
So it's palms.
You remove the trees from all around the tree, the leaves from all around the tree, and feed the animals.
No, but it wouldn't be possible to do it. I mean, you could if you had a pet giraffe. Like you'd be able to immediately cut and feed, right? But you're asking a good question. What happens if he brought his animals to the tree and he's chucking the things down to the animals? Maybe that would work.
But it's obvious he's not putting the tree.
I'm saying maybe that would work. Yeah,
Obviously he's not pruning.
that's what he's saying.
He's just feeding him.
Could we come up with a scenario where you would not have to prune on one side? Maybe if the animals are right there.
It needs a lot.
Yeah, that could work technically. I was just thinking before that on Tuesday of Chol Moed, the guy prunes only on one side. What does he do on Wednesday?
I was just, that was my question.
Prunes only on the other side. I'd imagine
Then he's sneaking.
that it would not matter. You know why?
He's allowed.
Because no guy is seeing you do both. Unless this guy's a nosy neighbor watching each time, right? The guy passing by saw you cutting on one side. The next guy, what does he see you cutting? On one side.
It's not the result. It's the
No,
intention.
no, not over here. Over here, the point is
But you can't-
that marit
But he
ayin.
doesn't want you to prune.
Right. But let's say one second. Let's say I am pruning for animals. That's what the case the Gemara says. You have to be pruning for animals. The Gemara's only question was, how will the passers-by know that you're doing it mutar? Answer is prune from one side. What happens tomorrow? I prune from one side. Now I need more food for my animals.
The other side.
There's nothing left on this side. Now I can prune the other
But
side.
still for the animal.
But for the casual passerby, he doesn't know what you did yesterday. He still sees you pruning only on one side, which is something you would only do if you're doing it for your animals.
It matters
Of
what
course,
time of day he's walking by. If it's 9 a.m. and you're pruning the right side, and yesterday you did the left, okay, that side was clean, I'm only doing this. At the end of the day, maybe he worked his way around.
you're talking about a guy that would have seen both. I'm saying in a normal scenario,
No, I'm not saying so, but someone's walking by
yeah,
on Wednesday, in their example,
okay,
in the morning, the left side was done on Tuesday,
yeah,
and he's doing the right
side.
side now, okay, it's clear. That's why it was done already. It's not
Oh, you assume
whatever.
they did it.
You're assuming because
before.
now it's visually
Oh, you
saying,
assume
oh,
they
it's
did
done.
it before that. And you
But
didn't
if you're
see
coming
them
at
do
the end of the day, just using this
sure.
example, then you're doing the other side. But
Let's
you
say,
don't know
let's be clear. I was saying facetiously that there's nothing left. When you prune, you don't take off the entire side.
that. Just the weekly.
You just take off random
Weak
branches.
stuff, weak stuff.
After you take them off, you don't even see that they were taken off,
They're like full off. They're like,
Okay.
right? So you wouldn't be able to see that.
How come there's not an individual like barometer for the work level? For
What
an
do you
old
mean?
person, so you're giving things that you
Oh,
can
you
do.
mean what's tirchayitera?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is for normal. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's an old person.
So
to him,
you're
that's
asking
a
a
lot of work.
good, you're asking a very good question. The answer is there's a famous line we say in the Gemara all the time. It goes, "Im ken, if so, natata devarecha leshi'orin." You gave your words to measurements. What that means is that it will never be possible to know what the halacha is. Because every single person has another thing. The guy's asking the rabbi, what is for me, what is for me, what is for me? So what we did was we created guidelines that and this is what they usually say, for the average person, exactly. Now you might have a young guy that's doing it like breeze.
No, but you
You might have an old guy.
Stressing heavy. To him, he shouldn't be.
By the way, there are things that are not tircha yetera, like as an example, guy's building a simple bench. Forget about it. Guy's an older man, he's building a bench, the guy's exhausted, he built half a bench. The bench is like this now. The guy can't even breathe.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
That's still not tircha yetera. Because we have a baseline for what your average person would consider to be
You need
tircha
a
yetera.
standard rule, and
Yeah, because otherwise that's not tata devarecha l'shiurim. Okay, because you can never teach the halacha. I remember my rabbi was once telling a situation. He was saying if a person is in pain, he's like, so someone was like, how much pain? The rabbi's looking at him.
Really?
Like, how is he going to explain that? So I turned around and I looked at the guy very seriously and I said, 11.
from an individual perspective,
Yeah.
that's a guy who's knowledgeable. And
Yeah.
what he can do and he can't do.
No, no.
No, hold on.
Yeah.
He could say it's like not in the spirit of the holiday. In other words, he knows it's allowed technically, but for me, it's a lot of work. I'm not going to do it. I shouldn't do that because it's not in the spirit of Chol HaMoed to be killing myself working. I'm not enjoying the holiday.
He could
I'm
decide.
exhausted. Right.
He could decide to do that. That doesn't
would be
mean,
a proper
but it doesn't mean it's
decision
asur.
for him. No.
Right.
It's a
Okay.
proper
Good.
decision
Yes.
for him not to do that.
Correct. Yes. Correct. Gemara continues. Rava now is on his seventh heter. Okay. Ve'amar Rava, hani tamri tuchlani. When a person has tamri, which is dates, which is what a perfect thing to talk about on Tu B'Shvat or Motzei Tu B'Shvat. Hani tamri tuchlani. Let's say a person had dates that were not yet completely ripened. Migzerinu shari. If a person cuts them into two, allowed. Maitzinu asur. But to press them is forbidden. Okay? Now, why is Rava differentiating between cutting them open and maitzinu and pressing them? Flattening them as dates. So look at Rashi. Rashi says,
Cutting them open, you have to cut it open to eat, right?
not
That's
right.
the proper way to eat it.
Tamarim shalom zeh migziru lichotchan l'shnayim, to cut them in two, leochlan hachi, and to eat unripened dates that were cut in two on Yom Tov. Shari, the tzorach Yom Tov kavid. You did it, for the sake of Yom Tov. Maitzinu asur. When you're pressing them, why are you smashing them like that down until they're flat? Lekobshan, in order to be able to, like pickling them or to dry them, b'masui, umotzi lecha sheben. And when you do that, you squeeze out all of the moisture in it. Sheben lachutz. Hainu asur. That's asur. She'achshav enan nitlain ela la'asot mehen tzimukim. Right now, they're not being hung. The only reason why they're doing this is to make them into like a dried fruit, leochlan bachol, to eat them afterwards, after chol hamoed hu mechaven. Your intention is ve'asur l'taken v'yom tov ma'achal lechol. You can't fix food from now to be able to eat later. So the Gemara says, if you have these dates and they're unripened, okay, you're allowed to cut them in half and eat them. But to press them and to smush them to the point.
They're not ripe's key because they're not ready to eat. They're for after Chol HaMoed.
Correct. Why is it key? Because if it was ripe,
Then you can eat it.
you could do whatever you want, really. Because in either scenario, you'd be able to eat them.
They're not ready.
You'd be able to eat them
They're
as
not ready
is.
for during Chol
Even if
Correct.
you're going to dry it,
Sorry?
You can
Preparing
even
it, though.
dry
It's
it.
not ripe though.
I know.
So it
No,
needs
what if
time
it's-
for
what if
after
it's ripe?
Chol Hamoed. Ripe, you can eat it.
It wouldn't matter. You know why? Because I can eat it anyway.
Right. Ripe, you can eat.
It's edible in this form even right now. Okay? Says the Gemara. Rav Papa Amar. Rav Papa says, no. Kivan dimitle'eh. Since if you take these dates and you don't press them, they're going to become filled. Worms are going to get them. Ki prakmatya ha'aveda mivishari. I have these unripened dates. I can't eat them now. What happens if I just leave them out? They're going to get worms. They're going to get bugs are going to get to them. So therefore, this is considered like davar ha'aved, a loss, sustaining a loss. So even though the loss is only going to be relevant for after the holiday, we always say to prevent the loss, you're allowed to do it. So therefore, he says it's like prakmatya ha'aved dami vishari. You're allowed to save them. Now it's very interesting. I just want to point out. Why does he say it's like prakmatya? It's like merchandise that's going to be lost. Why is he telling you that it's like merchandise?
That person is in the business of selling dates.
But why didn't he just say it's davar aved? It's something which is a loss.
So it relates to anything.
Why are we classifying it as prakmatya? Why did he have to say that?
So it loses its identity as a date. It's now just an item.
It's about a sale.
Right. It's an item. No, it's an item.
Yeah.
That's not ready to be. But if you're going to not do it, then it's a loss. You're allowed to do it
But why do we have to make it into an item?
Even
because it's relating to anything.
They're all
even a small loss of merchandise
Not only a date.
is you can. He can smash the dates in this case because if it's categorized as merchandise, even any small loss is you can take an action to prevent that.
Generic.
Excellent.
Generic, right?
If it's food, if we look at this as food, we don't allow you to prepare food for after the holiday. We don't allow you to do that. Isn't that true about all food? No. Let's say I have some extra food, whatever. It's going to go bad. So I'm allowed to do things for later now? No. So why do we allow you to do this? The answer is, says Rav Papa, we'll look at these dates as if they are prakmatya, as if they are a sellable object, merchandise, in which case even this small loss would be allowed, which in the case of food would not be that case. All right?
Even though it's just going to be for this family's personal use.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Okay? Gemara says, and let's finish with the final ruling. Rava says, Prakmatya kol shu asur, any amount of doing business on Chol HaMoed, even a little bit, is asur. Amar Yosef bar Ravin said, U'b'davar ha'aved mutar. When it comes to a loss, you're able to do business on the holiday as well. Again, coming back to the original. And by the way, remember, the rule that we gave you in the beginning is really this. But we just wanted to give you the codification. Okay. Gemara says, Ravina had a certain job, business, that he was trying to get a price on Chol HaMoed. And how much was he going to sell it for? 6,000. But he wanted to wait until after Chol HaMoed because he felt like I shouldn't be selling things on Chol HaMoed. And he sold it for 12,000. The Gemara is trying to express that there's no beracha in selling something or doing work on Chol HaMoed. Okay? Look, he pushed it off, right? Even though maybe he might have suffered a loss, he pushed it off and the beracha was there and he made double on the zbun. Okay? By the way, I just want to point out, you see that word? Shahir lezabune? That's where the word comes from.
Zabun, customer.
That's where the word comes from. Yeah. Lezabune. Look, you see?
Wow.
Because zbun means to make a sale. No,
I
yeah.
noticed it when you said
Yeah,
it.
okay. Says the Gemara, Ravina have masik zuze bebnei akra deshanvata. Ravina, he had money out that people owed. They owed him from this Shanvasa river region. Okay, so people owed him money. He came to Ravashi. Amar, he said, am I allowed to go on Chol HaMoed? I'm not doing business. They owe me the money. Can I just ask them for the money and collect it? Amar, he said, since today is Chol HaMoed and you're able to find them now, Normally, all the people all over the place, everyone's at work, they're here, they're PTA, they're doing all these things. On another day, everyone is hard to find. That's considered like merchandise that's going to get lost, and it's allowed. It's like davar aved. Now, just to be clear, the hidush that we're learning over here is very big hidush, because I would have thought this is not davar aved. You're not going to lose it. You still have the claim later. Have to push it off to later. We see in davar aved even small amounts of things that will render it into davar aved. It's going to be much harder, so it's not davar aved, but I'm going to need to work 10 times as hard to get the same item. That's davar aved. Maybe the way you could look at it is that it's davar aved on the labor, on the effort. Okay? Says the Gemara, Tanya Nami, we learned the same idea. Same concept with regards to avodah zarah. Holchin halacha is allowed to person to go. A person is allowed to go to the fair, to the sale, to the fairgrounds where they're selling the avodei kochavim mazalot, idol worshippers. You're allowed to buy an animal, servants, shvachot, batim, sadot, keramim, houses, fields, vineyards. And you're allowed to write up all these sales and go do it in their courts. Normally we say a Jew is not supposed to go do things in the courts of Odei Kochavim because it gives legitimacy to the rules and the laws of the idol worshippers. So why is he allowed to do this? Why is he allowed to go to do this before their holiday? Because the only way he's able to affect this sale and make sure that they're not going to go back on it and mess him over is if he has a legal claim against them in their own courts.
Opportunity. You have to take
Yeah.
advantage of the opportunity.
So since I'm going to lose that opportunity, even though normally we don't want you shopping in the place next to the time of their 3 days before their days of avodah zarah, okay, or going to their courts and going to their fairs and to their courts, the halacha would be we would allow it because it would be considered davar aved. Rav allowed Chia Baravashi lemigdal ohare b'chol moed to make traps for the fish on chol moed, to weave the traps. Gemara says, why? How come he was allowed to do so? Maitama maaseh yotu. Weaving the fish nets was also considered easy. Anyone, it's just strings and knots. Aval isli asur, but to make the nets for the birds would be asur. Maitama, why? Maaseh umanu. To make the nets for the birds, that was a much harder process, and therefore this was asur and that was mutar.
So you need differentiation.
Yeah, differentiation between
Birds and-
between maaseh uman and maaseh hediot. Rav Yehuda shari le'ami tanura. Rav Yehuda allowed ami, the tanura, the one that made the ovens, lemigdal tanura, to build new ovens on chol hamoed. Ulerabba bar ashbi, and he allowed Rabba, the son of Ashbi, lemigdal mohalta, to be able to make the sieves to what's it called?
Sifted.
To sift, exactly. To make the sift. Each one because they needed the ovens for Chol Hamoed, and they needed the sieves to be able to sift the flour. The Gemara says, 1 second. You're telling me he allowed him to build these ovens? Rabbi Bashmuel said, "Vishavin she'en godlin tanu lechatechila." We were talking about the two opinions in the Mishnah, and we said they both agree that you can't make a oven from scratch lechatechila in the first place. The Gemara says, "Lo kasha can be motachama." When the Rabbi Yehuda allowed building a new oven, that's in the summer days. Okay, can be motageshamim, that you can't build it in the rainy season. What's the difference between the two seasons? Look at Rashi. Rashi says, "Bimotachama kiloma," number 3 wide line. Kishiyesh yimotachama, when a person is in the sunny days, kegon bePesach, in the Chol Hamoed of Pesach, the havul alma she'en yordim bo gishamim. On those days, the rain doesn't rain. Mutar lasot motanur. You're able to make an oven, right? Lefi, because shela altar yavesh. Because as soon as you finish forming it, it dries. And you're able to then cook in it right away. But b'yemot hageshamim, in the rainy season, you're not allowed to make an oven. When you're making it, they made it out of clay. Now they built the oven, it's not going to dry. So it's only going to dry and harden, it's going to score after the holiday. And then you did all that work, all that effort, not for the sake of the holiday, which is Asur. So we have a stira. The Gemara says, no, this is talking about the summertime. This is talking about the wintertime. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Men ve'amen.